Shabbat Shalom and Mazel Tov to Amber. This is not the first of our Torah that I've delivered, but it is definitely the first one that I've delivered by way of Zoom. So thank you for your patience. Monologues are not considered the best practice in our Zoom world. I should be delivering my talk in small chunks using the share feature or the whiteboard feature to maintain your attention, or polling every few minutes to ensure that you're following the general message. I also should have a partner behind the scenes who's monitoring the chat section, and so that I can keep my eyes forward. That part I probably have. Obviously, I'm exaggerating to make a point. Zoom and its ugly cousin, Zoom fatigue, is likely your new normal, just as it is mine. In addition to seemingly endless work-related meetings, we have a sprinkling of fun too. For example, Bob and I recently attended our niece's wedding in Israel via Zoom. And we read stories to our grandchildren via Zoom. We even took a virtual Airbnb tour via Zoom. And of course, we attend services and wonderful lectures via Zoom. So you're probably wondering, how does this preamble relate to this week's double parshiot? Well, it might seem a bit of a stretch at the start, but let me give it a try. As the rabbi mentioned, in Nitzavim and Vayelech, we're focused on the covenant with God. And we're reminded that every Israelite participates in the ceremonies, from the wood chopper to the water drawer, as the Torah tells us. What we don't know is exactly where these gatherings take place, but we can assume that somehow it's possible for everyone to participate. On the surface, I would posit that this is the biblical 2020 Zoom version of access and inclusion, as everyone, even the laborers, are able to participate. Somehow the ceremonies are arranged in such a way that hundreds of thousands can hear and see and stand and be active participants. But actually, I don't think today we're using the biblical version of Zoom, because Zoom has exacerbated an enormous flaw in our society. Zoom is not the great equalizer. It doesn't provide access and equity of participation for everyone. Many across our land and across our world are not able to participate in every activity they wish to participate in via Zoom. We aren't living in times of equity and equality, not even close. We know there aren't computers in every household. There is not internet access in every home. And there may even be some in our own synagogue community who lack the ability to use Zoom to access our services. Try as we might to rectify this situation, we don't always have the means. As we count each day of restricted life in our homes, we might believe that the coronavirus has disrupted our norm, and it certainly has. But my love-hate relationship with Zoom has made me more fully aware of the haves and the have-nots. We have members in our Jewish community who don't have the same access today to those of us on this wonderful Shabbat Zoom connection. And they didn't have equal access before COVID invaded our lives. Zoom is not the all-powerful equalizer. So how do we square this situation that has existed before and continues today with the ability in biblical times to have every Israelite stand and participate in the ceremony establishing the covenant with God? I don't think we have an easy or obvious solution revealed in the Parshiot this week. But I think we're rapidly leading up to a time when these issues of community and equality will have even more of a spotlight on our own Jewish lives, especially on this special Shabbat prior to Rosh Hashanah. Not only have I been thinking a lot about Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur this year, even more so I think than in the past, but I've begun a practice of Daf Yomi Light. By this I mean that I signed up in early August to receive a daily summary of the Daf Yomi of the Talmud with a few words of wisdom from the guest rabbi of the day. I've never studied the Talmud, and I'm far from a Talmud scholar, as you can imagine. But as this year drags on, I decided that I needed something to remind me to think Jewish thoughts every day. Without the Daf Yomi email in my inbox every morning, I've been drifting too far away from having Torah in my life. Daf Yomi Light has become an anchor for me just when I needed it the most. Ubiquitous Zoom access helps us keep a connection to our Jewish community, but for me, it's not enough. As I noted earlier, it's not even an option for others. The gathering of all Jews together to learn of the covenant of God is just not practical in our current world. Ironically, it should be easier for us than it was in the desert, but it isn't. And it isn't for me. I'm trying, but I'm struggling. I haven't been thinking about the high holidays or anything else for that matter in the same ways that I normally do. First of all, I'm not thinking of the usual family gathering in the same way. And I'm not thinking about our synagogue gathering in the same way. Our new normal is not normal. We're not standing together. We're standing, but we're not together in ways that are described in the lines of the Torah. And perhaps many of us, including me, are not coming into the holidays with a sense of peace and contentment. How are we supposed to do this? We're living in a world torn apart by virus, by violence, by vitriol. How are we supposed to turn off this spigot and enter a period of community, commitment, and caring? I have no idea. I do know that Zoom's not our answer. It's an enabler that some of us are fortunate enough to use to replicate certain aspects of the community of commitment and caring. But as I mentioned earlier, not everyone will have this ability. Not everyone will have this access. So how can we celebrate our collective responsibilities when we're barely a collective? In my view, we have many more unanswered questions than ever before. In all transparency, for the first time in my memory, I know that a big part of me is not ready to reflect, to remember, and to repent. Last year at this time, I had a sense of optimism. But the first week in January brought the untimely death of my sister. And 2 months later, we were in the midst of the crises of 2020 that we have all come to know so well. And now we're here again at the start of the new year. And I'm having the most difficult time I can remember getting my head into the right frame of mind. I think it's because I can't separate the events around me from the angst inside of me. I can't find a way to retreat inside my head and push away all the outside threats to our very existence and focus on our communal commitment to the covenant with God. Daf Yomi Light is helping me get into the right frame of mind, but I fear it won't be enough. So before I go down this terrible rabbit hole, let me tell you what I have been trying to do to remind myself of our ever-present gifts. Our covenant with God does not promise a Zoom connection for all, but it does promise us a lot more. It promises us the light of the Torah. It promises us the gift of this wonderful Shabbat where we are celebrating the bat mitzvah of Amber. And it promises us a communal, and inclusive gathering, even if we don't know where and we're not all in the same place. So maybe this is the takeaway I can share from the Parshiot this week. We're all called upon as a community, every man, every woman, and every child, regardless of position in life, to come to an unidentified place. So place does not matter, but our collective responsibilities to our community and to God are what matter. We're asked to remember and to rejoice in our covenant with God. In this respect, in 2020, Zoom happens to be our enabler for some, even if it's not an equalizer for all. Our celebration of Shabbat today and our celebration of Rosh Hashanah next week is what matters for this moment in time. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, just today. We're not promised a means by which we will all connect. And we're not promised a positive outcome to the threats we seem to face on a daily basis, or an end to the losses that we have incurred. But we are promised these blessings and these curses. We have one God and one special covenant, and we have a responsibility that is collectively ours to repair this world and to rejoice in this moment. Shabbat Shalom to all of you. May this moment today be a special moment, and may we all be blessed with a sweet, happy, healthy, peaceful, and prosperous New Year. Shabbat Shalom to you all.